So my question was, before we even get started this morning, are you all with Gretchen? Do you all want to live? Do you want to be fully alive? Good, then we better get started. Because there's a lot to do. And this isn't just from the book we're using now, the great work of your life, that is based on the Bhagavad Gita, the 2,000-year-old text that talks about being fully alive. And even in that time, 2,000 years ago, the main character of the story is a neurotic warrior that has no confidence in himself. And he forgets, and he goes out to war, and he's scared to death, not realizing that his charioteer, Krishna, is a divine messenger, a messenger of God, that is here to guide and direct him on his purpose. Because we're here to bring forth what is within us. That's our job, to bring forth what we already have. We're not here to get something that we're missing, but to bring forth the gifts that have been given. Now, this isn't just from the Bhagavad Gita. In fact, Jean Houston, one of the major teachers in my life, talks about she has a word from ancient Greece that I love, entelechy. And entelechy is about the realization of our infinite divine potential. And it's the entelechy that lives in an acorn to know it's going to grow into an oak tree. It's the entelechy in a baby, knowing it's to be a full-grown human. And it's the entelechy in each of us that knows that we are here on purpose for a reason. There's a plan and a mission, a purpose for our lives. Now, I do really appreciate the book because it boils all that down into 4 easy, simple, do-it-yourself steps. Do-it-yourself steps. That part is the hard part. Because, we can read, or the little acorn could read about how to grow into an oak tree and go, that's a really good idea. How marvelous. What does it need to do? It needs to grow. It needs to do the work. So the first step in this easy 4-step do-it-yourself process is look to your dharma, look to your purpose. And there's 2 parts of this dharma deal. And the first part, and usually we're better at one part than the other. So if we're not going to look at what you raise your hand for, but first of all, when we look to our dharma, it's about taking time to contemplate. Meditative time, to look within, to be quiet, to make the space, to be present, to be aware. So when we're doing whatever we're doing, if it's meditating, we're not thinking about the list that we're going to be making as soon as we open our eyes. If we're washing the dishes in that meditative state, we're really present with the dishes and not analyzing, oh my God, that didn't taste too good. We're really present in what we're doing. How many of you are really good contemplators? Oh, there's got to be at least 3 in here. Come on. Okay, good. So that's the first part. Look to your dharma. Let it be revealed to you. Now, most of us get an inkling of this when we're a child. We have a propensity to do certain things that we love. And if we get confused of what we're supposed to do as adults, we can look back. Oh, yeah, I love that as a child. Maybe that's what my calling is. Maybe that's where I'm supposed to go. Because our calling takes different shapes and forms during our journey, but it's still the basic calling. The next one is do it full out. And that's what I'm saying. We can read all the spiritual books. We can do all the contemplation we want. But if we don't put these spiritual practices into action and practice, it's just not going to work. We can say, oh, forgiveness is a great idea. Oh, I can't believe you really did that to me. It doesn't work that way. We have to be willing to put it into practice. So the 2 things they talk about in the book, in the Bhagavad Gita, are contemplation and action. How many of you are really good at getting things done? That means you're not a procrastinator. You may be good at getting things done, but are they the right things? Yes, sometimes. I get that. Yeah, good. So the next one, which is, we worded it a little differently, but this week's message, which is do it on purpose, but in the book they call it let go of the fruits. And it's not the corny people in your life. That's not what it means. It means that you and I are here to let go of the gifts that we have. But in order to do that, in order to let go of the gifts that are inherent within us, we have to first of all recognize the gifts, of course. Then we have to develop the gifts. We have to practice. Now, you know, in the Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell says it takes 10,000 hours to master your skill. That means you have to be dedicated and focused. Our book calls it Dharma discipline. It means you got to let go of some of the things you thought you wanted to do. And remember, oh, I want to do my Dharma. I want to practice my skill so I can be really good at what I do. And once you become good at what you do, it doesn't have to even be the mastery part, but just good at what you do, we need to share our gifts. We need to give our gifts. We have no idea when we give our gift how many people it touches. We have no idea. I have a little story to tell about that later. So here's a simple gift, and next week it's turn it over to God. Let go of the attachment. Don't be attached. Because there's two parts of this Dharma thing. Dharma is like desire, our intention. If we're living from our lower energy self, this Dharma that sounds so good, oh, that's my purpose, can turn into craving and grasping and clawing at life to get what you want. And that's not the purpose. The purpose is to lift ourselves up so we can actually use that Dharma to aspire, for aspiration, to be inspired all the time. So it's really turning our Dharma into aspiration. But we don't do this all the time, and I'm going to tell you why. This is a quote from Ernest Holmes, one of the books he wrote later in his life. Earlier in his life, he wrote a lot about how to do the work so we can really live our purpose. But I think, he doesn't say this, but I think after he'd worked with a lot of people, he saw, oh my goodness, not everybody's getting this done. Why is it? So here's what he says. We put limits on ourselves. It's from A New Design for Living. It seems that in almost every aspect of our experience, we find ourselves limited in some way or another. This applies to the fuller enjoyment of health, greater success, better relationships, more financial prosperity. We all encounter blocks or limitations at some point. Would you agree with that? Yes, we do. Well, then you probably don't want to hear the rest of this, but I'll read it anyway. The most difficult thing for us to believe is that we create these limitations ourselves. Now, I don't believe that every experience in our life we have created ourselves. We come from this huge cosmic consciousness that is creating all the time. Now, I do believe that we bring things into our life to see how we handle them and what we do with them. And it's the way we use our power. Our power is, are we using our power to just repeat the same story? Again, until we have this rut in our brain that becomes a habitual pattern? You don't have to raise your hand on that one. I'm not either. But we can repeat the same story, or you and I can decide we want a different story. We can use our power to create a new story. We went from here to here to here. That was just a little example of how we can create a new story. It doesn't always work out the way we want it. It's my waist I'm touching here. But it doesn't always work out the way we want it. He goes on to say, it is though we spent all of our time gathering up limitations, placing them as roadblocks on our path, and then grumble about the fact that they block our way. The limitations we find encircling us have but one source, and that's our thought. Well, you know what? Don't be depressed. Because Mark Nepo had these 3 words in this reading for our practitioner class this week that have just stuck with me. I love it. I just love what he says. He said, no matter where you are on your journey, remember, there's always a sliver of beginning in every moment. A sliver of beginning that is infinite. A sliver of beginning that has, listen to this part, no judgment on where you've been or how long it's taken. It's this sliver of beginning that just rests in the darkness as a baby does in the womb waiting to be born. Some of us should be going, phew, because it's so beautiful to know that every moment there's that possibility for us to do something new. Don't you love that? Put that little sliver of beginning in your pocket. Oh, now's the time for the sliver of beginning. Hafez says it this way. Find a better job. He said, now that all your worry has proved such an unlucrative business. Should I repeat that? Now that all your worry has proved such an unlucrative business, why not find a better job? And that's where the aspiration comes in. That's where understanding that what you and I want to be is we want to be used by our calling. We want to bring forth that which is within us, to use our calling, to be on purpose. We need to be raised up. We need to be raised up in our mind, in our emotion, in our understanding. Remember I said, we don't even know how much who we are affects other people. I told you last week about the story of Joseph Campbell. And I started with just the quote that I love of his, the great privilege of a lifetime is to be truly yourself, to be truly who you are. And that brought me into a little bit of more study of Joseph Campbell. I knew he was the greatest mythologist in the world, but I learned more about his life. Great intellectual, great athlete. He lacked a little bit of focus, and when he was folding women's hosiery and learned a great way to fold it very quickly to sell it for the wholesale business, he decided he needed to take some different action. And he went to a lecture that was given by Fenwick Holmes, Ernest Holmes' brother. And he got to know Fenwick and Ernest Holmes, and he bought the Science of Mind textbook. And that, along with meeting Krishnamurti when he was a few years younger, were the great tools, he said, gave him the tools to change his life. So he went on and studied even later with Ernest Holmes. And then Joseph Campbell also studied with Jean Houston. Oh, no. Jean Houston also studied with Joseph Campbell. But then Joseph Campbell studied from Jean Houston too. But she said he was her hero, her spiritual father. And that he brought forth from her inner hero and really expanded her life. It was a beautiful, beautiful, just to read that beautiful story, but there's even more. This is something many of us, I don't think, okay, first of all, how many of you have a Science of Mind textbook? The majority of us. The foreword to our Science of Mind textbook was written by Jean Houston in 1987, not from their original printing, but in 1987. And let me read to you, it's only 3 pages long, so if you have the book at home, go read it. It's so inspiring. This is Jean Houston, who was the founder of the Human Potential Movement. And she wrote this about Ernest Holmes in Science of Mind. She said, "This is a book for the ages. It contains the distilled wisdom of many eras, many cultures, and one great soul. To read it is to be charged with change, to enter into partnership with God, to relearn the laws of co-creation. It is perhaps one of the most potent and influential books of the 20th century. Yet it appears in no compendium of great books. Its words have inspired countless millions seeded the growth of spirituality, innovated churches and philosophies, yet no universities place its content in their curriculum. In precise and powerful prose, it lays out the blueprint for the remaking of the mind and the reenactment of the world. Yet the architects of psychological and social forms know little about it. Perhaps this is because it's the way it should be. For it is the hidden masterpiece which must be discovered only when one is ready to enter upon a larger life. And she goes on to say, if I were to state the essence of the teaching of science of mind into one sentence, it would be the highest God and the innermost God is one God. And she goes on to talk about the creative essence of the universe, the creative essence of life. Now, to think about three great minds that were brought together kind of accidentally and how the circles continue. And Griffin, if we can put Indra's net up here. This point of this process of living our Dharma and answering the call really takes us back to Indra's net. Because this is about selfless service. I know that I mentioned last week, Jesus said, I am here to serve the world. That's what he knew. We don't all know that yet, and it's okay. We simply need to take care of ourselves. But we know from Indra's net that each of us is a jewel on this infinite, eternal web of life. And it is our job to keep us polished and clean. It is our job to keep on doing our work, that we can be fully alive and awake in the net so we can do our part. The third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita talks about selfless service. And that's raising that mind from the lower mind of Dharma, what's in it for me and grabbing all you can, to the higher energy, the higher purpose of the Dharma, which is, as I do my work, whatever it looks like out here, I do the world. I serve the world, because the principal from that high school in Georgia, when he said, we just want to be good people. We want to be good people, so we touch one another. And look at the difference it made at that high school. We don't know the extent of the good we do. All I know is that we are here to do that good. And as it's interesting, as I said, we're here to be raised up. And we're here to be raised up. If you just ask Jesus, his greatest teaching came from the resurrection. And if you ask Buddha, his greatest teaching came from his enlightenment. And Pema Chodron's Buddhist teacher, Chongyam Trungpa Rinpoche, if it's right or wrong, just put thumbs up anyway. Chongyam means oceans of Dharma, and Trungpa means attendant, so he's here to attend the oceans of Dharma for himself and others, and Rinpoche means a precious one. But he talks about what we each need to do is that we each need to be raising wind horse. And wind horse is the spirit energy in all of us. And it is the horse is the symbol of when we get on that horse, we're riding, co-creating in the journey. We need to be raising wind horse. But he was the one who said, to do that we need to touch the inner confidence, which is our natural state of being. And to touch this inner confidence begins when we have a deep-seated gratitude for ourselves. When we can say, thank you. Thank you for the life that I've been given. And that comes, I believe, when we get out of the old story of struggles, because struggles defeat us. Would you agree? They take our energy. But if we turn the struggle into a challenge, challenges feed us. How many of you love a good challenge? Sometimes, not, but anyway, it's there, the challenges that pull us to be bigger, to grow more. And those challenges, when they feed us, allow us to ride that power of our energy. And he said, as so many of the ancient teachings knew, that when you fully love, when you fully expand your life, you don't just accept the joys and the blessings that life brings, but you accept the grief and the sorrow as part of the whole circle of experience. So I'm ready to ride Wind Horse. I'm ready to do my part to keep growing in my experience, keep asking, am I allowing my life to be my calling? Am I living on purpose? Do I need to readjust or reestablish new patterns in my mind? Because it's a continual process. I know that today, as we come here to be on purpose, it's an intention we set, an aspiration. And I was very inspired by Richard and Teresa and their beautiful journey and their commitment to spiritual practice and spiritual life. I don't think they know. They were thanking us, but I don't think they know how they touch us by the overflowing love and spirit that they share. So I was very inspired to just close the service today with a quote that Dr. Frank Richelieu used to say, and he said it the first time I went to his church, his center now, and I will never forget it. And so I'm going to ask you to just say it after me. I'm alive. I'm alert. I'm enthusiastic. I feel good. I look good. I am good. Stand up, let's repeat it again. I am alive. I'm alert. I'm enthusiastic. I feel good. I look good. I am alive. I'm really alive. I'm so glad to be alive. And so it is. Thank you, thank you, thank you.